You mentioned quite a lot of improvement regarding science and drugs. Don't you think, what about the improvement regarding the AIDS? Couldn't be a good investment for someone like you?
Well, I don't know if you know the company Gilead Sciences in San Francisco. Do you know them?
No.
Well, Gilead has 95% of the AIDS or the retroviral market now. And they're bringing out a new pill which is called a quad, which is incredibly effective. It's a once-a-day regime. Because the problem with AIDS medication in the past was both the cost and also the compliance. So if you had to take 32 pills, which you had to do in the early days of retroviral drugs, then, you know, how do you remember? You had to take them at specific times with meals and what. You just take this one pill a day, and it doesn't cure AIDS, but it reduces the viral load to a point where your life is not affected. There will be an AIDS antibody vaccination at some point in the relatively near future. Of that I'm absolutely convinced. There's enough governmental money and pro bono money going into that field. But basically everyone who's got HIV, potentially turning into AIDS, can be cured, and all it is a question of money. So if you're going to agitate about AIDS research, the drugs are there. The question is, how do you get them to the people? And that's really not for me to say, but I can tell you that Gilead is an amazing company. It started, I don't know how many years ago, let's say 10 years ago, and it makes between 4 and 5 billion US dollars profit a year at the moment. And it's in other things as well as hepatitis C and hepatitis B, multiple sclerosis and cystic fibrosis, but that's its main focus. And they're very good at it. I'd look it up on the website actually, and you can see how they develop that particular niche. Okay? Thank you.
With living and working abroad, are language barriers ever an issue, and can it stop you from maybe travelling as far out as you'd like to?
Well, if you're working in business, the lingua franca of business everywhere is, there's 150 million people in China learning English at the moment. Everyone wants to speak English, even though the French may not like it. That's the language. And so you have a natural advantage being based here. There is the British are the biggest foreign travellers in terms of going overseas to make a living. I don't know how many expat Brits there are, but there's probably 10 million. And so you won't find that to be an impediment, I don't think. But if you do go and live somewhere, then try and learn the language. It's my eternal regret I never learned how to speak Chinese because I didn't need to. But wherever I go now, I've learned sort of basic Spanish. I can speak French now, and in Germany I can speak okay German. I make the effort, but it's much easier for you at your age to learn it than it is for someone like me. So if you do go overseas, make the effort to learn as quickly as possible.
Because you said like you jump from industry to industries, and because for me I thought at least take a few years to have an in-depth knowledge, and how to have an instinct and confidence about industry.
Well, I think. Again, that's a good question. I mean, basically, I'm not saying right today I'm a fund manager. Tomorrow I'm going to have a miner. I'm saying that as you consolidate your career or your entrepreneurial business in a particular industry, then look elsewhere to create another vein or branch of that. I don't pretend to be an expert in anything. I'm never going to be inventing a particular drug. I'm never going to be discovering myself a new mine somewhere. And I had a good career in fund management. But a lot of that was the luck of the big bull market that took place in the 80s and the 90s. It was just the way that everything went up. And in a rising tide, all ships rise. So I basically think that, for me, opportunism and changing works, but it may not be for everyone. So you have to tailor your career to whatever suits you. But what I can tell you is if, let's say, you go into opening a chain of pizza restaurants, and the public taste changes, and you stay with the same old pizzas you've been serving for years, you'll be out of business. So what I'm saying is that you have to, in a way, go with the flow. You have to anticipate the flow. You have to see what's happening in the future. And even if it's in a very specific industry, be prepared to change. Because if you don't change, you'll fail. Don't invest in the status quo. Bottom line, underlined. Oh, one more, okay? And then I'm off to the pub.
Most of us left our country to find our future out of our country. Fortunately or
Yeah. Where are you from?
I'm from Iran.
Iran.
Yes.
Right.
And now there is a category in home office as a student entrepreneur. Do you think is there opportunity for us in the UK to start entrepreneur?
I think you can be an entrepreneur anywhere. And you're outside your home country, as you said, so you've ticked that box. Look, the UK is the most flexible of all the European, both labour markets and business environments. In Europe, it's not the same as the United States or in Asia or somewhere like that. But you've done your studies here. I mean, if I was you, I'd go somewhere else. I mean, if I was looking for emerging market opportunities today, I would say that Africa is a great place to go, because it's beginning to get that sort of traction. You know, they're beginning to get growth. There's some sort of civil governance is emerging in some countries, and they've got a massive resource potential. I think Latin America in certain parts, and Brazil is absolutely the leader in Latin America. It's a real country, and I think it's got a terrific future. But the United States is not to be discounted. You know, the US of all the Western nations, Japan, is the only one that's going to have the same percentage of world population in 2050 as it has today, through immigration and through higher rates of reproduction. And almost every successful business idea in the world comes from the United States. So I mean, basically, I would recommend that, you know, really everyone should spend some time in the US getting to know their business environment. And the best places to do that are around Boston and in the California corridors, so La Jolla in the south and San Francisco in the north. But it's each person's story, really. We can't all do the same thing. If we all decided to move to the United States, well, there wouldn't be enough room for us, and we probably wouldn't be allowed in. So do what fits you. But if you don't feel comfortable with something that's changed, go. Right. No, I've got one more, and that's it. Right. Wow, some of the questions are coming. I like that.
Which sector or sectors would you invest in developing countries such as Turkey or Greek countries?
Can you say that again?
If you want to invest today,
Yeah.
which sector or sectors would you invest in developing countries such as Turkey or Greek countries?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, basically, in pure emerging countries, which Turkey's not, Turkey is a modernized society, really. I would say that if you're going into Africa, the ones you want to invest in are the aspirational goods that we take for granted, but they don't have. So, I mean, cosmetics, basic pharmaceuticals, basic cars and motorbikes and things like that. That's probably the area that you want to be looking at in a very, very developing country, and infrastructure development, of course. But in a country like Turkey, the more sophisticated place to invest is in the financial services and the telecoms and the entrepreneurial sector there, which is, you know, the retail sector and so forth, which are all very highly sophisticated and developed. And, you know, so I don't know specifically the Turkish market, but I put an ETF for Turkey into my retirement account because I think Turkey's a great growth story and very underappreciated. And so, are you from Turkey?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So I think Turkey's got a lot going for it, actually, a lot going for it. I highly recommend it as a long-term, lock-away type of investment. I don't know it well enough to say what to invest in. But it's a great way to invest in emerging markets. And that way is to invest in the multinationals that have strong emerging market presence. And so the big pharmaceutical companies, for instance, they're going to make their incremental growth by being in China or in India. And because no one wants to buy pharmaceuticals that are counterfeit, so the Chinese and the Indians are making all these fake pharmaceuticals. The Chinese want, the indigenous population therefore will buy an American product or a European product because it's got the safety label on it. And you don't want to mess with your health, so you actually are prepared to pay a bit more to buy the proper product. And then I invest in companies like McDonald's, Yum Brands, which is very big in China, which is the Frito-Lay and the KFC. I mean, none of these are very healthy, but, you know, healthy for the balance sheet. The tobacco companies don't smoke, but if you can make money off smoking. Imperial Tobacco, British American Tobacco, Philip Morris is called now, it's called Altrius or something like that. Those are good companies to invest in because they benefit from the emerging market growth, but they have the corporate governance of established markets. And, you know, so many people have lost money by investing in emerging markets where the growth story is great, but the owners are stealing all the money at the back end. So, thank you. I think that is it now, actually.